Hi, and welcome to Thanks Again Film Podcast, Episode 5. Dune. More Dune. I don't think this one's going to be an hour, but I think I found something that I'm comfortable with saying from my own, I don't know, it makes my brain rest, is what I'm getting at. Some sort of understanding of what Dune might be saying. But looking at it, I just took a glance at a couple things on Dune. And what I saw was, I want to look up the chapter of where Paul walks out into the desert and becomes the Kizak Zadorak. What does that chapter header say? Because that's a pretty neat one. That has to be pretty neat. That has to be a clue of what all Dune is saying. And I go to look it up, and it says, let me look. This is another part. It says that it's in Children of Dune, or Dune Messiah. It's in Children of Dune. Paul walks out into the desert, it said, in Children of Dune. Spoilers, by the way. So I keep looking. I got it wrong. So apparently what happens in the movie is what happens. And that means, what chapter does Paul drink the water of life? And Google says, in Frank Herbert's Dune, Paul Atreides drinks the water of life in Book 3, Chapter 45. Book 3, not Dune Messiah. Let's see. Book followed by Children of Dune. A lot happens in Children. Children of Dune is a big book. What? Paul drinks the water of life in Book 3. A pivotal moment where he fully awakens at the Kizak Zadorak. Okay. They put that in the second movie. In the movie, she stabs the worm. She stabs the worm and they drain the fluid out of it, and it's pure blue. A lot of stuff in Dune is dark. It looks dark. Denis Villeneuve, I know he was making it secretive and strange and real, but some of that stuff looks dark. It's a bit scary. I bet it would have scared the pants off me if I was a kid. Dune Messiah is the second book. continuing the story of Paul Atreides as Emperor of the known universe, who faces a conspiracy from political enemies and internal threats to his dynasty, exploring themes of power, religion, and the dangers of charismatic leadership. The novel serves as a darker, more philosophical follow-up, revealing the tragic consequences of Paul's heroic rise and the bloody jihad he unleashed, and it was adapted into Frank Herbert's Children of Dune miniseries, which was on the Sci-Fi Channel. Starring Professor X. The other thing I was looking at was really neat. Were the, what do you call them? I'm looking at it, the epigraphs of Dune, the chapter headers. The chapter headers are amazing. It really shows the skill of writing. He walked out, he left the country and went to the desert, and it probably changed him. This is a smart person. The writings of an intellectual. If you dare to look into Dune or any of them, he didn't finish the entire, well, not the entire series is written by Frank. His son took over. Where do I start? I'm gonna pick up where I left off in the chat, and then I'm gonna try and get a little bit excited about the new movie that's coming out from January. It's coming out in December. But I'm gonna go over what the Wikipedia says that movie is supposed to be. And then I'm gonna call it. It's Dune Messiah that they're going over, which is the sequel to Dune. But I'm confused now, because if all the Kizak Zadorak stuff is in Dune 3, then what happens in Dune 1, I'd have to reread it. Paul simply goes out to the desert, learns to ride a worm, and convinces everyone that they need to attack. And then they overthrow the Harkonnens. That can't be right. Something happens. But they're saying all of that stuff is in the third book. I remember some of it, Children of Dune. Spoilers, I'm not going to spoil it. A lot of stuff happens. Paul walks out into the desert, and he leaves his family with Duncan, Idaho. A lot of stuff happens in that one. Um, Let me see. Alien 4. I might go over the Alien movies next. Okay. What I was saying earlier was that everyone on Dune seems to be looking for beauty. It's a type of understanding that they have a dead, dying planet, and these desert people have thought that it needs to be fixed. And to fix it, instead of arguing amongst themselves, there is a way to do that. There is the best way to do that. And one of them, the prophet that they've decided, would walk out into the desert and gain an understanding. A prophet that comes from outside the group, is male, but has a Bene Gesserit understanding, which means he's trained by women. So that's a masculine who has accepted feminine. It's ingrained in them to be feminine. He's not putting down women or any of the toxic masculinity. I think that's part of what it is, that toxic masculinity cannot exist around Paul. Which is basically two rams batting each other in the head. So he has a millennia of Bene Gesserit training, of meditation, to be able to focus, to understand and hear his ancestors. And other people. And he has to walk out into the desert with that understanding and figure out the way. And what does that mean, to figure out the way? The way is an idea to find what's best for everyone. He has the find on a war planet. He has to bring peace to everyone. He has to heal a desert. They're wearing suits that contain water. He has to restore water to a desert and heal a war. And then it goes further than that. It's the entire universe. Is it a galaxy? I think they said universe. Consumes spice. This one planet supplies everyone, and the people on it are dead and dying, and he has to fix it. He has to find the one way that solves everyone's problems. And when I hear that, I think that means he's looking for a type of beauty. He's looking for a really good painting, the perfect painting. And what leads me to that is looking at the other characters who are in power. Paul's antagonist is either, not either, is probably both, is the Baron Harkonnen and Fade. And they're both dark. And the Baron's an ugly character because he's a giant wound, and he consumes without the care of others. And Fade is he's cool, which seems like coolness is a type of false beauty, if you ask me. I think beauty involves peace. It's a pleasantness, an understanding, and a peace. Visual beauty is, I think I heard it has a lot to do with symmetry. When you look at someone's face and you say, oh, they're beautiful, part of what that is that they have a symmetry of where their features line up mathematically on either side. And there's a ratio of eye placement to the rest of their features. But yeah, with the villains, they think the villains are in power, and they think that they've found a beauty, which is what they want. And they'll reach for it and laugh and say how nice it is. I'm thinking of the David Lynch version more than the Dave Villeneuve one. the Baron in the new one, if his plan goes his way, he'll sink into the mud, he'll sink into the oil and look content. But the old one had a flying chair, or he'd had boost rockets on him, and he'd laugh and giggle and spin around the room. And they would both be wrong. Okay, so I personally feel like Dune is a struggle of people searching for beauty, and it boils down to a purity. It's what's good versus what's bad. An ugly problem, uh, famine, drought, pain, sickness, war, struggle, versus health, water, peace, that sort of thing. They're looking for a beauty that heals everything. And the way it's described is that he'll see through all possible timelines, all possible options, and be able to pick the right one. And I don't know. To me, that sounds like someone reaching or searching for beauty. Because it's casting away which doesn't matter. It's peeling away darkness, what's wrong, what will not work. And it's selecting the purest choice. And in that selection, you're not going to call that nasty. You're going to hold it up high and say, how wonderful. And I think that's the search for beauty. And on the walk, I thought of the Bene Gesserit training, which takes a millennia, 10,000 years, I think. It's either 1,000 years or 10,000 years. It's not 100. And the Fremen prophecy, which I just described. And what I think it means is I think they're trying to say that the wisdom of beauty takes time. I think Dune boils down to someone trying to explain that the wisdom of beauty takes time. Any old answer won't do. In that case, they're pointing towards wisdom. Any old answer won't do. It requires thought. And thought to get the proper solution will require wisdom. And that's what Paul was looking for, basically, is wisdom. To search through everything. To understand. I was thinking, what does Paul have that everyone else in the story doesn't? These people are in power. How come The Baron can't walk out into the desert. And understand how to solve all of Dune and bring peace and prosperity to everyone. Paul can find beauty is what is what my brain said earlier. When I was out walking around, I ran right into that. I was stuck. I was like, what does Paul have that the rest of them don't? Paul knows how to find beauty. Muad'Dib, little desert mouse. He knows the little desert mouse knows how to find beauty. Send him out to solve all of our problems, please. He will find the most beautiful answer. And in that, there will be wisdom. I think that's what all of Dune is saying. At least the first book. The wisdom of beauty takes time. All these rulers I could go over this some more. I was about to dig in on the Emperor. The Emperor's in his 80s, I think. And he's making bad choices. He's making choices out of fear. Okay, there's a lot of stuff. That's one of those things where I've only sat with it for an hour or two, a couple of hours. And I'm going to sit with it a little longer. But that's what I think this is saying. The wisdom of beauty takes time. There are no easy answers. Or something like that. I wanted to read a couple of these because they sound amazing. The epigraphs of Dune, the chapter intros. Many have marked the speed with which Muad'Dib learned the necessities of Arrakis. The Bene Gesserit, of course, known the basis of this speed. For the others, we can say that Muad'Dib learned rapidly because his first training was in how to learn. And the first lesson of all was the basic trust that he could learn. It is shocking to find how many people do not believe they can learn, and how many more believe learning to be difficult. Muad'Dib knew that every experience carries its lesson. From the Humanity of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. Yep, I think so. Paul is willing to learn. I was thinking that on the walk too. It's amazing. I should have taken the recorder with it. I had the phone. Part of what makes Paul special is that he's willing to learn. He learns from everyone throughout the story. He's constantly learning. That's a type of receiving, which means he's a masculine and is feminine. There's strength in Paul. Greatness is a transitory experience. It is never consistent. It depends, in part, upon the myth-making imagination of humankind. The person who experiences greatness must have a feeling for the myth he is in. He must reflect what is projected upon him. And he must have a strong sense of the sardonic. This is what uncouples him from the belief in his own pretensions. The sardonic is all that permits him to move within himself. Without this quality, even occasional greatness will destroy a man. From Collected Sayings of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. At the age of 15, he had already learned silence. From A Child's History of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. All right, here's the big one. My father, the Padishah Emperor, was 72, yet looked no more than 35 the year he encompassed the death of Duke Leto and gave Arrakis back to the Harkonnens. He seldom appeared in public wearing other than a Sardaukar uniform and a Bergsek black helmet with the Imperial Lion in gold upon its crest. The uniform was an open reminder of where his power lay. He was not always that blatant, though. When he wanted, he could radiate charm and sincerity, but I often wondered in these later days if anything about him was as it seemed. I think now he was a man fighting constantly to escape the bars of an invisible cage. You must remember that he was an emperor, fatherhead of a dynasty that reached back into the dimmest history. But we denied him a legal son. Was this not the most terrible defeat a ruler ever suffered? My mother obeyed her sister's superiors, where the Lady Jessica disobeyed. Which of them was the stronger? History already had answered. In my father's house, by the Princess Irulan. These are amazing. That's good writing. That is amazing writing. Okay, where am I? I'm about 35 minutes in. I'm going to take a short break and come back and read a little bit of what might happen next. Okay, and I'm back. Those are kind of silly. Since there isn't, I'm not putting any sort of commercial break in between. Dune. Dune Messiah is next. That's coming out in December. There's one more movie. Paul Muad'Dib Atreides has ruled as emperor for 12 years. There's a time jump. By accepting the role of Messiah to the Fremen, he has unleashed a jihad, which has conquered most of the known universe, but is powerless to stop the lethal excesses of the religious juggernaut he has created. But is powerless to stop the lethal excesses of the religious juggernaut he has created, a jihad. Although 61 billion people have perished, Paul's prescient visions indicate this is far from the worst possible outcome for humanity. Motivated by this knowledge, Paul hopes to set humanity on a course that will not inevitably lead to stagnation and destruction, while at the same time acting as ruler of the empire and focal point of the Fremen religion. The Bene Gesserit Spacing Guild conspire to dethrone Paul. Okay, they're going to get in specifics. They are getting into specifics. I don't want to do that. I want to be surprised. I still want to be surprised by this. Because I forgot completely what happens. I just remember what happens after this. The Villeneuve trilogy. In April of 24, following the critical and commercial success of Dune, confirmed that the adaptation of Dune Messiah was in development. They finished shooting it already. Okay. Doesn't have to be a giant podcast. It's 40 minutes. That's a good long chunk of time. That's the first one. I think the first one lasted 40 minutes. 45. So I'm going to call it here. I think Frank was pointing towards wisdom. The desert problems need wisdom and beauty. I think that's all he wanted to say. World problems, political problems need wisdom and beauty involved. Okay, well, that's my understanding. That's my understanding of Dune. Um, yep, wisdom and beauty. It needs feminine. It needs the idea of women holding hands and talking rather than a loud mouth saying I'll have my way. It needs more of what's best for everyone. That happens in Dune, by the way. It happened for the Emperor. The Emperor is secretly talking with the Bene Gesserit Guild. And the way that it looks like the Bene Gesserit Guild is trying to manipulate the Emperor from behind scenes. But it looks dark. Beauty has to be involved. Paul finds beauty in the desert. If I was if I was being silly, I'd start putting faces up. Okay, I'm joking around. I'm joking around a little bit. Okay. Thank you for listening. Be well, everyone.